Hello my dear Digimon figure fans, this is Mega881000 again. Like I explained always in those retrospective reviews on this topic, I started a new retrospective review video series in which I will review again all of these old, but in my opinion back then best articulated, non-transformable Digimon action figures of the original Bandai Japan or Bandai Asia D-Real Digimon Action Figures series, or for the Western World Digi-Warriors series, in single proper on camera reviews. Again, because I showed them all previously before in my very simple very first videos. And I also made my so-called re-upload video series part 1 about them, and for every single figure of this series in 2016. Later again with already single new videos, you may know. So yeah, there were already slightly better videos about each of these old Digimon action figures in my back then current and best style that I could offer you in 2016. But I also think that it is time to do better sort of retrospective reviews on camera about these old Digimon action figures, because I think that these old high quality action figures offer a lot of potential and deserve a proper new review. These reviews about these old action figures of the D-Real or Digi-Warriors series will also be a bit different and also plan to be shorter than my other reviews, and I won't assess them such detailed and not the same hard here and only from the perspective that they all were originally action figures for children, which is also the only right way to assess them the right way, right? Yeah, even when they are offered at exorbitant collector's prices today's, yeah, that's another thing, but yeah. I dedicate the 4th episode of this retrospective reviews, as you could already see along the too much intro here, to Bandai Asia 2000's D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode action figure. As I also explained in the first episode, As I also explained in the first episode of this retrospective reviews on this topic, the release year was 2000 for the first 4 plus a repaint figure for the Digimon Adventure 02 anime series in Japan. Or rather, I think that they were mainly developed and made to accompany the first Digimon movie in Japan and got released as merchandise for that movie. As a generally new, for the first time, bigger, fully articulated, highly detailed, non-transformable, about 6 inches or 14 centimeters tall Digimon action figure series. Such a type of Digimon action figure never existed before that there were only the small collectible figure sets, the 2.5 action figure series, and the bigger transforming Digimon action figures, and especially in Japan and Asia, the Digimon model kits of that time. But these D-Real or Digi-Warriors Digimon action figures were on a completely new, different level and something we've never seen before back then. But most of this D-Real or Digi-Warriors series, most of the figures, they produced and released just later in 2001 for Digimon Tamers. The very first 4 D-Real were D-Real Wargreymon, D-Real Omegamon, D-Real Imperialdramon, D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode, plus the one mentioned repaint figure of the normal Wargreymon mold in the form of D-Real Black Wargreymon action figure, as in probably exclusive Bandai Japan repaint of the general mold, the normal Wargreymon mold. So, the first we do with this review is, of course, again, can you guess it? We doing a better setting here to get this figure more in the focus here. Of course, we're doing this again, like I always doing in my reviews now, and have the better look at the figure, to see the sculpt, to see the paint apps and all the good stuff going on this figure. First we're doing rotation to get the full view of this back then nice Imperialdramon FighterMode action figure. And of course we doing the close-up thing with D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode here, to see even more details and all the good stuff going on this figure. Look at the sculpt, look at the paint job, everything. Well, there we go. It's kind of dusty down there on his claws, but I hope you don't mind that so much. Yeah. Here we have the big wings. Again, a close up on some details of the two heads. His real head and his chest armor head. There. Yeah. And I think that should be enough for this, for the close-ups and all the good stuff here. In our Western world, you may know them as the Digi-Warriors series. If you are wondering about the two different designations, if you're still wondering about it, yeah. But like I also explained many times in some of my other videos, there are some serious differences in the implementation between the original Bandai Japan or Bandai Asia D-Real releases and our Western World Digi-Warriors releases. We will coming back to this in a moment. The injection molds for this series were originally all made by Bandai Japan. Yeah, there were also a few exceptions for later releases in the form of exclusive releases for the Western world market and also for the Asian market, or for the later American releases of our Digi-Warriors series, but that is topic of the retrospective reviews about the respective concerning figures. You know, Japan always had their own designations for their figure series and lines, which was different from our designations. But as mentioned before, the D-Real figure designs were, with the few exceptions mentioned, all Bandai Japan original molds and designed, produced by Bandai Japan. The figure molds of our Digi-Warriors and the Japanese D-Real versions or their Bandai Asia offshoots were identical. However, the main difference was that our Western world releases of these Digimon Digi-Warriors versions got less paint apps. But there were even more differences in the color design for our Digi-Warriors. We will coming back to this later on. So the Japanese original D-Real figures and their Bandai Asian offshoots normally had more paint apps or better detailed color design and were, as always, packaged on completely different designed blister cards, which that was typically more individual matched to the respective figure in Japan. Yeah. Also want to show you the Japanese blister card because my figure is the Bandai Asia version. There we would have the Japanese original blister card. There, also look at this price. Yeah. This is the original Japanese blister card with Imperialdramon FighterMode. That would be the backside. Yeah. And the Japanese blister card would look like this, which is Warcraymon's blister card here, but yeah. Would be matched to Imperialdramon, of course, with all the pictures and stuff, but that's also like Imperialdramon's blister card would look like, and yeah, just matched to Imperialdramon, right? Yeah. The Bandai Asia design was a bit different again from the Japanese blister cards. They were more unified than the Japanese blister card design was, because there were always more characters pictured. Also the backsides showing all the options for the other figures, and as you have seen, the Japanese blister card just showed the available figures, but it was only about Imperialdramon in this case, or the respective character or figure inside. They were more individual. Yeah. So we would have this. Yeah. Like I said, blister cards had a more individual matched design to the respective figure in Japan, even more than the Asian blister card design. Yeah, Bandai of America imported them for the Western World market and changed the original D-Real series designation as mentioned to Digi-Warriors Series. They packaged them on blister cards with a different and more unified, simplified design that is typical for us. Yeah, like I said before, this time I can only show you the Bandai Japan blister card on screen because I only have the Bandai Asian version. Because my figure is the Bandai Asia D-Real version. Yeah. For this reason I don't know it to 100%. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Excuse me, please. What I wanted to show you was the, yeah, our Western World design for those blister cards. Yeah. For Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode, that would be the US box style. There we go. That would be the US box style. And look at this freaking price. That's, I guess, new card, unopened. $600 freaking dollars for this old action figure, which is not the best version of it, but it's sealed, I guess. But yeah, the Japanese version would be the better choice here because it's used. That eBay offer was for a used figure. Oh, sorry. This eBay offer, and yeah, you have to pay only $200, and I would go for the Japanese version because you will see why along this video. Yeah, as well. So yeah. But the Bandai Japan and Asia D-Real versions of the figures themselves should be identical. The only difference is the blister cards design for each. Yeah, just to mention this. Thanks to the fact that this figure series was imported by Bandai America, it was generally sold in Europe with a few exceptions. At the Digipedia DP Destiny net page, there is the Digimon Toy Encyclopedia, where all the toys from the 1st to the 4th Digimon season got listed. It also says that none of the first 4 Digi-Warriors figures, so yeah, imagine this would be the Digi-Warriors box, were released in Europe. None of them. But that is complete nonsense. Of course, there were exceptions for the different countries, but back then those people who made this list, they probably just didn't know it any better, and a lot of it was true. Some of it was probably rather based on pure speculation. Yeah, as I said, this information at the time was or is nonsense, and yeah, the internet the internet was also something new back then, right? Yeah. Because I even was able to get at least Digi-Warriors Wargreymon and Imperiadramon in my local store in Germany. But I am not really sure about Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode and Omnimon, because I only bought Wargreymon and Imperiadramon in that store back then. But I think I remember that there was a third figure available for sure when I bought the other two. And I think it was Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode. I'm pretty much sure that I saw it, but I not bought it back then. Also, our European blister cards differed just slightly in certain design aspects from the US blister cards. Basically, they were the same, as it has always been the case. Our European blister cards were always in multi-language, while the US releases were exclusively in English. They had the same simplified, unified design US boxes like the European blister cards, but more languages. It would be the biggest difference between those. Yeah. By the way, I only have the D-Real version with the better coloring of this old Imperialdramon FighterMode action figure. I never bought a Digi-Warriors version of him back then. I never bought it later. I just got the Bandai Asia D-Real version at first, so there was no need to buy the inferior version of him, right? That's why there are only verbal comparisons on in this video and on screen. In the already better video at the time, there were no comparisons or no difference mentioned. So this new retrospective review is also an update for the older video, because we're going all through the differences on screen by explanations. You will see it. Let us coming back to only D-Real Imperialdramon. Yeah. With the first point here, Sculpt proportions were as good as the amount of the budget and the technical possibilities and safety requirements for such an action figure for children at that time allowed it to be, could be, right? Rounded, child-friendly sculpt, modeling, mold, of course no sharp-edged proportions because action figure for children. Nevertheless, the sculpt, the modeling and proportions were really good and impressive for the first time type of bigger, fully articulated, highly detailed figure in comparison to the previous 2.5 action figures and what we got up to that point in terms of Digimon figures before. And I want to show you this with some examples for action feature figures. The size and the style. They all were high quality, those action figures. Those Digimon action figures back then were all high quality figures. But that was something better than that, because there was also Imperialdramon, FighterMode and Dragon Mode existing like such a figure. But I never bought this as well. For that time, without questions, the best non-transforming action figure of Imperialdramon FighterMode with a decent size, with which the original Imperialdramon FighterMode character design could be reproduced with immense details for the first time. Of course, the later Bandai Japan Figure Arts Imperialdramon FighterMode collector's action figures now have much better sculpts and proportions, but we're not judging from this point of view, we're judging it from the old view, and from the old view, that thing was great, like the others. Also, those action figures had a lot of good things to offer in view of coloring. This counts especially for the original D-Real versions. This brings us also to the next point here, which is coloring paint apps. The color scheme was very detailed, and actually almost no paint apps were left out on D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode, and that's for an action figure for children. Yeah, that was something insanely good. In any case, from this point of view, it has an excellent, super detailed color scheme. The used colors are seemingly pretty high quality and matching glossy, almost metallic colors. For black colored armor components, we have this nice looking kinda injection metallic molding color and this kinda pearl white or metallic white for the horn and the dragon head armor. This also shows the quality of what you used to get for your money back then, and in the direct comparison with the most recent, simpler Wargreymon action figure in the form of AnimeHeroes Wargreymon, this is getting especially very noticeable and obvious, and it becomes really obvious how cheap and dull this color scheme is in comparison to this old figure. In this direct compare, especially the D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode version looks almost like a collector's action figure color-wise. Back then there were different and better standards compared to today's, which is actually crazy, but yeah, you can see the truth. Nowadays, with the real Bandai Tamashii figure arts collector's action figures, of course something better is possible in terms of coloring, but we have to judge and assess these figures from the perspective of the time and what they were supposed to be, namely action figures intended for children. So we shouldn't judge them with collector's eyes and demands, and this applies to sculpt and color design. But these two are action figures for children, so we are allowed to compare the old with new one here. Yeah, as I said, for today's standards and what simpler action figures for children looking like today's compared to the color scheme of this old D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode action figure, his paint job was actually really good and of a higher quality and definitely better than the standards of today's action figures. This gets really obvious here, and I just want to emphasize this very often. Yeah, and the things that I said before, that even applies to our Western World Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode version. Because even it is inferior in coloring, they still have this nearly same good coloring which the new figures not have. So action figures. Like I explained in the last retrospective review episode, especially the first four, for the first four there were almost none or just minor differences in terms of missing paint apps between the original Bandai Japan or Bandai Asia D-Real versions and our Digi-Warriors versions of them. The differences between them firstly just became bigger and more worse with the Digimon Tamers figures. Yeah, and now at first let us take a look at the few differences in the color schemes between D-Real and Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode and the missing paint apps on him. Yeah. And firstly, I have to show you our U.S. the Digi-Warriors, our Digi-Warriors version on screen before to see things better. Yeah, we have a used offer. It's also from eBay or at eBay, and yeah, also not included the positron laser here, but keep in mind they also included the positron laser with our figure release, just going for the missing paint apps here. So look closely at this picture, and at this picture, and at this image there, and also this picture. That are the pictures we got from the seller here. And now we are doing the compare thing. Yeah. Differently and in contrary what I said and shown in the last recent review about Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon, they sadly done everything to paint our Digi-Warriors version much worse than the better D-Real version, and there is a really big difference between the two versions. That was not topic with the 3 figures reviewed before, and that is the color implementation detailing of the eyes. Maybe you have seen it, because while the color implementation of the eyes for the D-Real version was normally good, as it should be and as it was with the other 3 before, nice detailing, nice colors, nice paint apps for the eyes, like it should be. The eye detailing for our Digi-Warriors version was really shabby and cheap, because the eyes were only white on the outsides and black on the inside as a pupil, and that's it. So not at all adapted to the original color scheme or the D-Real version. And I will also show you, and yeah, this was at the same time the biggest and most worst difference between the Digi-Warrior and the D-Real version, and I showing you those pictures again for the eyes. Look at this. We have this close-up shot there. There you can see we only have black and white eyes, and that's a bad thing if you're looking at the Japanese or Asian release, which has the same nice normal detailed eyes coloring wise like his other line mates. So in addition, for the Digi-Warriors version, no golden paint apps for the 2 smaller outer spikes on the shoulder armor. They just omitted them and left them black on the Digi-Warriors version. Those 2 golden spikes here, they're not painted golden. The eyes of the dragon head chest armor, no additional red for the dragon head components, and also not the gold paint app there, or the yellow gold paint app there. Black anthracite paint app missing for the dragon head remainings on the back. This whole thing just left out red on the Digi-Warriors version. Black paint apps missing for recesses, the demarcation details on arm armor, on the dragon mode claw remainings. Those middle sections, they just painted golden like but we have the segmentation color wise with the D-Real, so it should be also the way. Yeah, they left out on the Digi-Warriors version the white paint app missing for the zipper detail on the suit. This is also not painted white on the Digi-Warriors version, just left black like the rest. Red paint apps missing for the 3 round shaped details on the thigh armor there. They just left them black on the Digi-Warriors version. Golden paint apps missing for the 3 spike details on the front section of the positron laser. They also left out black, just like the rest. Yeah. And yeah, basically, of course, our Digi-Warriors version would also be missing these pinstripe paint apps with the black coloring, but they were not suitable for the D-Real due to the generally dark main color of his armor and main body. So I just wanted to mention this. But if this would has those pinstripe paint apps like Wargreymon, D-Real Wargreymon on the Brave Shield for detailing the crest symbol of courage there, the Digi-Warriors version wouldn't have those black pinstripe paint apps as well. Yeah, very nice. He threw away his Dramon killer. Sorry, yeah. Furthermore, for the original D-Real versions counts in general that the colors used for molding plastics and the colors for painted components appearing to be of a bit higher quality, more glossy, more metallic than it is in contrary with our Digi-Warriors. The color tones usually have a deviation. In my videos from 2016, I described this as kinda nicer, more adapted, show accurate colors to the original character design for the D-Real versions. In addition, the typical color difference of different details of the molding plastics and painted details that you always have on action figures are of course also present on the D-Reals, but are much less noticeable than it is in contrary with our Digi-Warriors versions. Yeah. But all of these last recent mentioned things you can only see in a direct comparison when you have both versions. And besides, these last mentioned differences were much less with the first 4 releases between the D-Real and the Digi-Warriors versions, and just got more worse and more noticeable firstly again with the later Digimon Tamers action figure series. Yeah. You want another example of some more high quality colors on D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode in comparison to the Digi-Warriors version? Well, as I said, I can't make direct comparison with the figures. I can only show images on screen. But I suspecting, for example, that this almost metallic pearl white color for the dragon head and chest armor, dragon head chest armor and the horn remainings on the back on the D-Real simply looks less quality, cheaper in dollar like other components as well on our Digi-Warriors version in compare. While they already saved cost for the shabby and cheap looking eyes for the Digi-Warriors, I can imagine that this wouldn't look so nice here, like it's in contrary looking on the D-Real version. There was also another special difference in terms of marketing for the original Bandai Japan and Asia D-Real versions, because they originally had a nicer short description subtitle on their blister cards, which was different and matched for each figure. For the D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode figure, this was roughly translated as Invincible Imperial Warrior Imperialdramon, or perhaps something else like Invincible Imperial Dragon Warrior Imperialdramon. While our Western World versions were simply titled as Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon, yeah, thanks to Google translating functions I was even able to translate that, and I find this so interesting to be able to find out everything now, that you can read things that you simply didn't know or couldn't read before if you not know Japanese, right? Yeah. So, and I don't know if I showed you the Digi-Warriors version. Yeah, I showed you the Digi-Warriors version. Box, blister card. I showed you this. But with all the mentioned differences in color design, we're going back once more to this offer to, to see again the differences, which they're not with the missing paint apps. The ugly looking eyes are awful for our version. Yeah. There we have again the Digi-Warriors designation for the US market version here. So would showing you this as well. Even if Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon clearly loses out again in terms of D-Real Imperialdramon's better color design, the color scheme, colors on the Digi-Warriors version are still much better than compared to the coloring of the last recent AnimeHeroes Wargreymon Omnimon action figures. There we go. You see small but subtle differences between the original D-Real and our Digi-Warriors figures, and yet already a bigger bad difference, more bad difference with the cheap implementation of the eyes for our Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon compared to the D-Reals. Nice looking, normal, nice looking colored eyes. As mentioned, the differences in the coloring just became much bigger and more worse with the Tamers Digi-Warriors action figures, but I think you already getting a taste of a much worse color scheme here with the Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon. Yeah. So this figure, in my opinion, is the worst figure of the first four in this respect for the Digi-Warriors versions, our Digi-Warriors versions compared to their better D-Real versions. In addition, by some of the higher evolution levels of the Tamers action figures, they additionally missed out interchangeable parts with which their D-Real counterparts came with additionally, or better said, normally came, but yeah, they simply omitted them with our Digi-Warriors of this respective figures, but that will be the topic in the respective retrospective review of each. Just wanted to mention it again, that there were more differences, not just coloring for some. Up to the next point, which is articulation. Not only in terms of sculpt, the high level of detailing and the great coloring, but also in terms of articulation joints, this first bigger action figure series offered a reasonably good level of articulation with which we never seen before for being a non-transforming Digimon action figure. On the D-Real Blister's backside, it was promoted with 18 action joints, and we're proving this once again with the picture on screen, right? There we go. This is also the additional subtitle for the Japanese blister. And we're looking at the back side. There you can see clearly 18 action joints. All the options are pictured, and there are notes about those options. We're coming to that in a moment. Of course, today's figure arts, Bandai Japan collectors Digimon action figures are much better articulated, but as I said, I judged the old ones in terms of the fact that they were articulated action figures for children and not with today's collector standards, which is also the only correct way to judge them right. And for that time, they had an outstanding articulation. By the way, there were no differences in view of the joints articulation between D-Reals and our Digi-Warriors versions. They were generally identical in that point, just like in the sculpts. We will now check the articulation of D-Real Imperialdramon as usual with the articulation demonstration. Let's go! Yeah. The head rotates side to side until the armor getting in the way. We would have the free full 60 for the arms or the shoulders, but the range is limited to the wings on the back, but it would be there. We have a upper bicep swivel there to have also a kinda 90-degree bend for the elbow hinge there. It counts for both arms. We have a hip joint rotates a bit. We have a nice range for the legs. Can do the full splits and even further. That's crazy. Thanks to the hinged thighs there, and also rotates forward up, in and out through the hinge. We have knee bend there, not much, but it's there and it's okay for action figure of back then. And rotating at the knee again, and we have the hinged feet to hinge them up and down. Yeah, we have rotating tail. Nothing for the wings, they are just stuck, they are just not articulated, they are screwed in there or on there. We have also opening function for the dragon chest armor head there, but we coming to that back in some minutes. I think articulation wise we are through. Yeah. D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode special gimmicks. Firstly, his positron laser cannon is detachable. Yeah. So you can have him with or without the positron laser. Now we have the hole there. That's a thing you could do with this figure. Yeah. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. And with that you have the actual typical gimmick for Imperialdramon figures. So you could also reproduce the Giga-Death attack with this old figure already for even more action. Yeah, we'll demonstrate, and that's why this head opens. Now you can go in to the head there, pack it in, And he even can, oh, I forgot to tell you that the fists are also rotating a bit. I forgot for articulation demonstration. Excuse me, but you will see why again now better, because he actually can really hold the hilts of his positron laser there for creating Giga-Death. Yeah. Attack! There we go! There we go! That's a thing you can do, or you could do with this figure. And both features, detaching and the Giga-Death option, also possible with our Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon figure action. Yeah, of course, because gladfully the positron laser also was included with our version. So there we go. That brings us to the last points and to another point, which is conclusion by recommendation. To make it short, D-Real Imperialdramon FighterMode was at his time for sure the best articulated Imperialdramon action figure, with for the first time bigger size and decent articulation, with a good sculpt and high level of detailing and a super great color scheme. For being an action figure for children, they were a dream come true, guys. Compared to what Digimon action figures we got before, and today's poorer standards, coloring wise, once again with AnimeHeroes or Greymon for comparison. And this also applies to our Digi-Warriors Imperialdramon FighterMode version again. Because it would has similar coloring, which is better than this. Once again. And as you have seen, the Digi-Warriors version differs from the D-Real version with a slightly worse color scheme than other figures in the series. By the way, they were advertised on our Western market blister cards as ultra detailed articulated figures, action figures. Maybe you have seen it on the US card before. I'm no longer giving a buy recommendation on purpose here, because the figure is already old and it will getting very difficult to get it still at reasonable prices these days. You not will get it at reasonable prices. Discounts especially to the Bandai Japan and Bandai Asia D-Real versions. Thanks to all the scalpers, they are now all considered at a collector's value, and because they are old, hard to find all the bad stuff. The bit more inferior Digi-Warriors figure version you could perhaps hunt down at a lower price still, but eBay shows something different. Regardless of the price and because of the still much better coloring, I would go, of course, for the D-Real version. And what I also want to do is to go back to the normal state quick here, put on his positron laser and do a bit of a different pose. with the positron laser on display here. Yeah. However, there are now plenty of better alternatives for articulated Imperialdramon fighter mode figures, such as the Bandai Tamashii SH Figure Arts Imperialdramon, Premium Color Edition Collector's Action Figure, which should also still has a relatively reasonable price, or also its 2014 original release figure version SH Figure Arts Imperialdramon Fighter Mode also exists. Which perhaps can be hunted down for about similar prices as the old D-Real figure gets offered today. In any case, I would recommend to get one of the two Figure Arts Imperialdramon in this special case instead, because in my opinion they are the best articulated Imperialdramon Fighter Mode figures you can currently get. They also have more accessories, a much better sculpt and better proportions, as well as an even better color scheme compared to this old D-Real figure, which on the other hand is of course outdated in every respect now. That's the truth. There's also the small Shoto action figure existing of Imperialdramon Fighter Mode, which can even be transformed or digivolved into the Dragon Mode, just to mention the two. And I also want to show this, but I'm not sure if the Shoto figure can replace the old action figure size-wise, proportion-wise, and proportion-wise, gut-wise. It can replace the old figure, of course, because the sculpt of the Shoto figure is also a bit similar to the Tamashii sculpt of Imperialdramon Fighter Mode. But you will see for yourself. I'm showing you the Shoto Imperialdramon Fighter Mode figure, but it's small. There we have the Dragon Mode option, and again some more poses with Shoto, Imperialdramon. Now let us do some comparisons. This one I don't show you again for comparison, but we have to go back to his D-Real pals, right? So show you him with D-Real Imperialdramon, D-Real Wargreymon, D-Real Omegamon, and the repaint, Japanese exclusive repaint, D-Real Black Wargreymon. Also want to show you him with smaller character of Bandai Tamashii figures with D-Arts Wargreymon Original Designers Edition. You can see it's also a bit smaller. And I also want to show you him with the Bandai Figure Standard Anime Design Magnamon model kit figure, to see how they are looking together. And I also want to show you him with some of Digimazing's KO Figure Arts Digimon with the plated gold Magnamon, to see how they are looking together. There we go. And with another one of Digimazing's great KO figure arts with Digimazing Studio vs.Dramon. There we go. Yeah. And I will end this video at this point now, because I think I have said everything about the Bandai Asia D-Real Imperialdramon action figure from 2000, the year of 2000 now, and also about the compare with our Digi-Warriors version of him, right? I will dedicate my next retrospective review to the 5th, most likely Bandai Japan exclusive D-Real Black War Greymon repaint figure. Yeah. Which I only mentioned so far or showed you quick. Yeah. For a little tease for the next episode here. Yeah. For now I'm saying goodbye for this episode to you, and thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and if you like my channel, please feel free to subscribe. Until the next episode or next video in general, your Mega88 1000.